We're back on covering day, and we're gonna put the poly cover on this greenhouse. That little piece of plastic is the only thing that separates our crop from the weather. So we wanna make sure we get high quality material. We wanna buy this covering from a greenhouse supply or greenhouse manufacturer. This isn't the sort of thing we typically get at a hardware store. It needs to be UV stabilized so that it doesn't break down in the light. This material is 6 mils thick. That's not 6 millimeters, that's 6/1000ths of an inch, and it's rated for 4 years. The inside of that poly will have a treatment, a coating. There are 2 different types. There's the IR coating, which reflects the infrared radiation that's coming out of the crops and out of the soil at night and being sucked up by the universe. It reflects some of that back down onto the crop. And the AC coating is the anti-condensate. When condensation forms on the inside of the poly, those droplets scatter light and really rob a lot of the light for our crop. So the anti-condensate coating breaks up that surface tension and allows that condensation to sheet off. So on the inner layer, we want to have an IR AC coating. If we were going to burn fuel to heat this house, it's absolutely critical that we apply 2 different layers of poly. That first one would have the IR AC coating on the inside, and the second one would be clear. This is going to be an unheated high tunnel, so we're going to stick with 1 sheet of poly, and that gives us a little bit better light transmission than the 2, and since we're not heating it, we don't need that insulation value that 2 would afford. So we've picked a really calm day to do this. We do this covering early in the morning. We want to avoid windy days because the wind getting under that poly just makes it really difficult when that large sheet starts sailing in the wind. So we do it early in the day when the wind is calmer. And we want to be conscientious too about temperature. If we do this when it's too hot out, that poly is going to be a little bit bigger and we'll stretch it tight, and then when it cools, it'll shrink up too much and end up being too taut. And vice versa, if it's too cold when we put it out, on the sunny days it might get a little bit floppy. We're going to attach this poly using wire lock, and it's an effective reversible way of putting the poly on the house. But that wire lock can be dangerous in terms of poking out people's eyes. So we want to make sure we're wearing proper eye protection, and we're always conscientious of where both ends of our wire lock is when we're installing it. Behind me, you see the crew installing some heavy woven poly. This small sheet will span between the first 2 bows and be secured with wire lock. This is optional, but it helps to reduce the cold air and wind infiltrating the house from the ends of the roll-up sides. It's secured using the existing wire lock and can be made from the same poly used to cover the house if you have enough extra. That's great, we'll show that. I like to save the panel from the poly, and we'll actually write today's date on here and secure this to the inside wall of the greenhouse. In subsequent years, we'll remember what year it is we have to switch it, and we'll know exactly which piece we need to purchase. This is gusset folded, and this piece is gonna go up and over the house from here. And when this goes up and over the house, as these gussets unfold, this piece is going to remain down below, and we're going to see this label we'll be able to read from inside the house. We need to read that from the inside of the house correctly. If we put it on so that that's legible from the outside, we've done it backwards. We're going to end up rolling the poly out along the edge of the house, and we're going to secure that poly, we'll show you how in a minute, to some ropes, but those ropes need to be up and over. So one way we're going to do that is we'll take a weight, in this case just a filled water bottle, and we'll tie our pull ropes to that weight. The number of pull ropes you put out is going to be dependent on the length of your house and the number of people that you have to help you pull them. We're going to do 5 ropes on this 96-foot house, and that's a good number. It can be done with less. But we've got the helpers here today, and the more helpers we have, the better off we are. And using this bottle trick is particularly helpful if we're doing a double layer and we have to get that rope up and over that first layer of poly once it's in place. Take that weight, warn people on the other side, incoming! Great, and now we're ready to pull. And so we're gonna start this lined up a little bit beyond the edge of the house, where we are. You guys are gonna hold it steady, and we're gonna lift this up. And we're gonna roll this out, and it's gonna get easier as we go. I promise. Ooh, man, that's close. So in order to support this poly, as we're bringing it up and over, using these ropes that we've already set into place, we're gonna secure a tennis ball, come from the bottom in. We wanna make sure that that tennis ball is sitting on top of the poly, don't come from the other side. And we snug the poly around it. And I'm gonna wrap this securely, and I'm gonna tie a knot on both sides. So I tie one overhand knot here, and then I come to the other side, a square knot here, 2 overhands. Okay, so now we can pull on this. This poly is gonna ride up and over, and we'll repeat this process for each of the ropes that we have going down the house, and then get ready to pull. So Andre is gonna mark the center line of the sheet so that when we're up on the ridge, we're able to align that center to the ridge. Once we're ready and we've got all our ropes set up, now we need to assign our crew. So on this house, we're gonna have 5 pullers. We've got 2 ladders set up in the middle, and we're gonna have a person in the middle with a broom, and that person has the really important job. They're gonna watch for snags, they're gonna yell out to stop, and they're gonna free any snags from the inside as that poly goes up and over. We'll have a 4-person who's going to bark out orders. If you have a bunch of pullers, once that poly gets up to that first purlin, the 4-person isn't going to be able to see those pullers, so it's probably smart to number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 going on down the house. So the 4-person can say number 1, stop, or number 2, speed up. We're going to pull it up a little bit at a time, up and over entirely. Once it's up and over, the person on the inside is going to come to the outside, and one of the pullers is going to come to the other end, and there'll be 2 people on either end working in opposition one another to snug it along the ridge line. Go ahead and bring it up to the hip board. Nice and gentle. If you feel a snag, just stop and let me know. Great, bring the up over the hip board. Nice. Get up and over that first purlin. Take it right up to the ridge if you can.
Yeah, we're snagged on a purlin.
All right, if we got a snag, hang on, stop. All right, bring it to the next purlin, nice and easy. Great, go ahead and bring it over the ridge if you can. Go ahead and bring it to the first purlin if you can. Bring it down to the hip board. Past the hip board if you can. Nice, great. All right, go ahead and bring it on down to the baseboard. Nice job, pullers. All right. End people, go ahead and get on the ends.
The people at each end make sure that the poly is centered, and then they pull against each other to tighten it across the whole length of the house. They each then secure the poly at the peak using wire lock.
So now that we have that first layer tacked at the peak and then at the bows, and it's been tightened out in opposition, if we were pulling a second layer, we would go ahead and pull that second layer now, and then when we secured the second layer with the wire lock, it would set right on top of those first pieces of wire lock that we have in that channel as it is. This house only gets 1 piece, so now we're gonna go finish and get the rest of the ends before we secure it at the hip board.
Don't apply wire lock below the hip board. This needs to be left free so that the sides can roll up. Keep a piece of wire lock to secure this down in the wintertime when you're no longer using the roll-up sides.
This is the wire lock. If we have to cut this, we'll actually use wire cutter or diagonal cutter. Pick a point where it's flat, and we're not going to cut right through it. I'm going to apply pressure and rotate this until I've scored it. And then once I've scored it, wearing gloves, I'm going to snap it. When we put this wiggle wire in, it would be easy to kind of snap it down and we hear this puck, puck, puck. But rather what we want to do is we want to make sure we're bending it a little bit and using our elbow and our shoulders to get a nice smooth motion where we're putting it in. And that's going to help to protect the poly from being damaged by these corners as they go in. So we want to keep a nice smooth motion. We pull it tight, but give enough slack for it to set down into that channel. So now that the ends are all secured, we need 2 teams of 2. So we need a total of 4 people to secure along these hip boards. These 2 teams are going to work on opposite sides of the house, walking down along, securing it at about the same pace. So just check to make sure you're not getting too far ahead of the other team on the other side of the house periodically. So one person is going to be a puller, snug that poly down while the same thing is happening with the team on the other side. The other person is going to put in the wire lock. I'd like the puller to have some eye protection, and the person putting in the wire lock, please be conscientious that you don't poke your puller. Start this wire lock in the upper part of the channel, and you want to push the poly in a little bit so that we're not tearing the poly when we put in that wire lock. And we'll work down together, snugging and wiring as we go. And when we get to the end, sometimes with a gloved hand, we can just snap that one right in there. If that's a little too challenging, or if you're doing a whole lot of them, by the end of the day that's going to hurt, you can use a pair of needle nose pliers and grab those and set them. Just be real careful we don't tear the poly, and I'm going to simply let that snap right in. And the next piece will start right up next to it, and we work our way down the entire length of the house.
Once the poly is secured at the end walls and along the hip board, it's time to install our roll-up sides. If you're not installing roll-up sides, attach the poly directly to the baseboard. We'll install roll-up sides in the next video.